When you think about it, using language is something we do all day, every day. You hear something, you get it, you say something back. It feels totally automatic, right? But today, we're going to dig into what's really going on inside your head.
So does your brain work like some kind of delivery app for words? Like an order comes into your ears, one department processes it, and then it gets shipped off to your mouth to be spoken? Or is that story just a little too perfect?
To get to the bottom of that, we've got to start with the classic map scientists first drew for how language works on the brain. It's a model that's built on one big, simple idea.
And that idea is called the localization view. It's pretty straightforward, really. It just means that specific jobs related to language, like understanding a word or saying one, can be pinned to very specific spots in the brain.
Let's make this even simpler. Imagine you're listening to a song by, say, Imagine Dragons. According to this view, there's one part of your brain that's like the lyrics department. Its only job is to figure out what the words mean. Then, there's a totally separate singing department that gets you ready to actually sing them out loud. Two different jobs, two different places.
So the really important part is how this delivery is supposed to work. Let's walk through the classic pathway. Let's say you hear a famous line from a show like Breaking Bad. I am the one who knocks. Okay, step one. The sound zips over to what's called Wernickes area. This is your lyrics department. It's where you understand the meaning. Step two, then that signal gets passed along through a bundle of nerve fibers called the arcuate fasciculus. Think of it as the delivery driver. Step three, it arrives at Brocas area, which is your singing department. This spot prepares to actually generate the line. And finally, step four, a signal goes to the motor cortex, which gets your mouth moving to physically say the words. See? Simple. Hear it, understand it, get it ready, and say it.
But, and this is a big but, here's the twist. That super clean, simple map, it's incredibly helpful for sure, but it is not the whole story of what's really happening in there. This really shows the difference perfectly. The simple map we talked about is like a single, straight train line. But the messy reality? Whoa, it's more like the entire subway system of a huge city, with tons of connections and all these different areas lighting up and working together all at once. The simple map is a fantastic starting point, but the full truth? Well, it's a lot more complicated.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't some new hot take. The scientists who developed these models, they were always really clear about the limits. One of the most important papers on this topic literally says this is certainly an oversimplified version of what may actually take place. They knew it was a simplified model.
And this is probably the biggest takeaway here. The brain is not a neat and tidy train station map with clear stops and direct routes. But we often draw it that way because it's an amazing tool that helps us get organized and make sense of this unbelievably complex thing.
This whole idea of a useful but not quite right map brings us to something really important that we all use to understand complicated stuff: metaphors. Which, of course, leads to a totally fair question. If it's not really a simple one-way pathway, then why on earth do we even call it one? Why stick with that metaphor?
Well, the answer is kind of mind-blowing. We have to use metaphors because we can't actually get direct physical proof. We can't just, pop the hood on a living brain and watch a little word or thought drive from point A to point B. The whole process is totally invisible to our eyes.
And in fact, our metaphors for the brain have always changed right along with our technology. Way back in ancient Greece, Aristotle thought the brain was like a cold sponge that was there just to cool down the hot blood from the heart. Then, fast forward to the 1900s, in the age of trains, Freud used the steam engine metaphor, talking about emotions building up pressure. And now, in our digital world, what do we say? We talk about electrical pathways and signals firing through circuits.
So if we can't watch it directly, how do we learn anything at all? Well, we have to rely on indirect methods. And historically, a huge piece of the puzzle comes from studying the system when it has problems, when it malfunctions. By seeing what a person can or can't do after a specific part of the brain is damaged, we can piece together clues. What goes wrong helps us build that map of what's supposed to be going right.
Okay, we've talked about the simple map, the messy reality, and why we use these metaphors to try and understand it all. So now, let's see what you remember. It is quiz time.
All right, question number one. Which area is mainly for understanding words? And here's your hint. It's the brain's lyrics department.
Question 2. Which area helps prepare you to speak? Remember, this is your singing department, the one that gets you ready to belt out that Maroon 5 song you love.
And for the final question, true or false, the simple map of language that we talked about is a 100% accurate and complete picture of how the brain works. Is that true or false?
Think you got 'em? Go ahead and post your 3 answers in the comments below. It'll be awesome to see what you came up with. So, turns out the brain's secret delivery app is a little more fascinating than you thought, huh? Thanks so much for tuning in for this explainer.